for some reason, when I was a kid, I would take my tricycle, I would flip it over.
Okay.
So the seat and the handlebars were on the ground. Okay. And then you could grab the pedal on the wheel, and I would crank the pedal.
Okay.
And in my head, I was making ice cream.
What?
Why? I don't know why.
It's your problem.
Yeah, he said if as a child, it's not like I didn't have ice cream. I was making ice cream.
Most kids would die for a bike.
For a tricycle.
Right? They're like, give me a tricycle. You go, I need that tricycle because I want to make ice cream.
Yeah, I wanted my.
That's hilarious.
That's what I did with my tricycle. Making ice cream.
Where you're like, did you have like anything other than like you're running a business?
I don't know.
Gonna make ice cream for the kids.
No.
You're just happy enough just to make it.
I don't know. Like part of me, as I think about this, and I'm trying desperately to figure out why I would do that.
Oh, that's so good.
So our driveway was not. We didn't have a paved
driveway. You had rocks.
We had
Rocks family
run across because my dad, as we have discussed, was a distributor for Stella Door cookies. Of course. So we would have a tractor trailer show up, and there was a warehouse. He had a 1,300 square foot warehouse with a full bay door in the backyard, which was strange because we lived in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
But there it is. So that was it. So we would have a tractor trailer show up once a week.
You were like commercial things going through this residential.
Our home was zoned commercial. This is the Gray Hair and Daycare podcast. With a combined age of 111 years and a combined IQ right in that same range. Your hosts, Frank Sirio and Carlo Russo. Welcome back. It's a whole new year.
Season 2, baby.
I'm worried about how it works because we said that in the last episode. And I'm like, is it going to get screwed up if I start putting season 2 now? Are things going to be out of order on Apple? I don't know how it works.
We're back to season 1, guys.
It could be. This might be season 1.
Let's stop talking about seasons.
I like the sound of season 2. But anyway, welcome back to what may be the first episode of season 2 or just episode 11. But either way, as always, I am Frank Sirio. I am 55 years old, 55. And my wife is 28 weeks pregnant. Where it just keeps going by and by. And as we often do, always do, we have the weekly produce update. And the produce update is today we are up to a butternut squash size.
That's a big,
Her head is getting bigger. Basically, that's the big news of this week. Butternut squash. And her head is getting bigger to accommodate the huge brain.
Very nice. Oh,
because with my wife contributing to it's going to be
the baby's going to be all brain. I'm just a big old head.
Already terrified that like at 4 years old she's going to be asking me life questions that I'm unprepared to answer.
Oh, they will.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it. Butternut squash. We're in week 28, and here we are. Back again. So.
That's awesome. Butternut squash and a big old head.
A big
old head.
A big old head.
I love it.
And Kelly has on occasion mentioned her concern because I have a big noggin, right? So I'm like,
it's a good one.
When you for those who are familiar with hat sizing, so I'm like I think it's a 7 7/8. Like I'm a big.
You say it's big.
Yeah. Like I can't buy a hat like at Target. Yeah. Like they're all like they look like a party hat on me. So she's like, I hope she said a couple of times, I hope she doesn't have
Yeah, we need to have Kelly's head.
A normal head.
Normal. That's all right though.
Nicely proportioned.
Especially for a little girl, Josie. We can't
want to give her a big noggin.
Yeah, we can't have that.
It's like some kind of a baddie in a Marvel film.
I'm gonna say you have no worries.
Okay.
Because your sisters look great.
Yeah.
And on Kelly's side, they're good. So you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
I'm thinking, yeah.
There's not going to be a bobblehead. Bobblehead baby.
Yeah. I always worry because there have been times, certain children that I've seen, friends, not family members, where it's like what happened on the way out?
Yeah.
Like the head is, yes. And that's a thing like now that I think has also become common. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they make like preventative helmets. Yeah. It's like a mold for the baby's head that they wear all the time to make have a pleasing head shape.
Yes, because when babies are young and they're sleeping, that will shape their head.
Flat spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they'll put that little
right. You got to roll them around like a meatball. You don't want that.
You got to make sure they're. So they put they'll put that helmet on them, and they can roll around in bed and not worry about it, and they'll thank you later. But
I'm disturbed by a society where the child has a helmet to sleep. Why? Why is it? We didn't have any of that.
That's why we have flat heads.
That's right. I got I
got a nice little flat head back there.
I can use that to sand the back of my head.
So there's all that stuff people have to worry about. How does if you're lucky enough to have hair,
that's right.
You're not worried about your
no.
But it's those gentlemen and some ladies that lose their hair, and they have to have a good noggin.
Yeah,
they have to have a good shaped head.
Yep, that is important, I guess.
Yeah, Josie's gonna have a beautiful head and beautiful long hair. And it's gonna be great.
Little Josie, I have every confidence that will be the case.
Absolutely, me too.
So the first thing up for this episode will be, as often is the case, the Silver Fox mailbox.
Oh, I love that.
So we got another very, very nice email from one of our fans, Becky.
Awesome.
And it was we have talked about on multiple occasions my fears regarding the childbirthing process.
Yes,
and my hopes that if it was a cesarean, that I would not be involved.
Right.
She, of course, has wanted to disabuse me of that notion. And we've already kind of talked about it a little bit. What I thought was interesting was she said that don't worry, you'll be there, but there will be a screen, and that makes me feel better. And it's a good, nice size screen. What she said was that her husband, Jeff, had to sign a piece of paper with this. This actually was very reassuring for me that he would not peek. I'm not sure why.
What?
She said that she was pretty sure that before the doctor had a talk and was like, don't come over the screen.
You do not want to see what we're doing.
You don't want to see this.
Mystery to you. Keep it that way.
Maybe it's I don't know, they're picturing somebody snacking on a breadstick and it's going to peeking over. I don't know. But yeah, she said that he had to
sign.
He had to
they're going to sue him if he peeked.
It's like a release for a zip line.
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
But that's from Becky.
You're going to be like, you don't have to worry about me signing anything. I'm not looking.
I'll let you tattoo it on me. Here.
I won't even be in the room if you want.
Don't look. Whatever.
Knock me out.
Don't worry about it with me.
That's funny.
So it was very nice to get the email.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought was a good one this actually came from our Name the Baby winner.
Okay.
Marie.
We got to get that T-shirt.
And this is a great recommendation. Mm-hmm. We had talked about at some point in the past car seats and preparing and things like that. And she recommended, and I've looked at it since, and this is a great resource. There's an Instagram account called, all one word, no dots or spaces, Safe in the Seat. Safe in the Seat. It has all kinds of information on good car seats, how to choose one, how it connects.
The brands, which are better than others. Okay.
Great recommendation. So it's on Instagram, Safe in the Seat.
Safe in the Seat.
Covers a whole bunch of information that is valuable. So a great tip from Marie and a very nice email from Becky. Our very next segment is another installment of The Database. And we're going to be returning to our conversation with our friend, John Taylor. Yes. So this will be part 2 of his interview, and we hope you enjoyed part 1. And here is a little bit more of the dulcet tones of John Taylor, ladies and gentlemen.
It's going okay, but it's 5 days, and I'm his mom stays in the hospital the whole time, and I'm spending kind of every night there, and every night gets a little bit better. Night 1 I'm on just a chair, and then night 2, I think I'm on 2 chairs pushed together. And by like the 4th night, I actually got like some kind of cot, but we, we get him out of there, and it was a very, very scary thing. But to go to back to your question about like teaching a child day and night,
right.
They don't know what that is. So you kind of have to teach them like, okay, it's nighttime. This is when we go to bed. Because if you don't spend that time, if you don't put that effort in,
they're going to just be feral.
They may sleep in the day and just say, hey, let's be up all night.
Right.
And that depending on your lifestyle, becomes very untenable.
The regimented schedule was a good thing.
And it's tough because in the beginning, babies are eating every 90 minutes or so. So really the way we got through it was we took shifts. It was, you're trying to look as a modern society, and many people are working. The struggle is, how do you get some sleep and raise your baby, but also maintain, your livelihood? So, we would take shifts where I would stay up with, like, we would try to get the baby down by 7, 8, or 9. Generally, in the early days, it's easy. You get them down at like 7. As they get older, it gets more difficult. And I would stay up with the baby until I think around 2 a.m. So she would be in the bedroom. It's like, no matter what you hear, just stay asleep. So get your 5 hours.
You were on duty until
about 2 a.m. And then she would come out and take over at 2, and I would sleep until about 2 to 7. And then I would get up for work. So essentially what we were able to give each other was 5 uninterrupted hours of sleep. And if during your 5 hours, the interesting thing about a baby is they do love to sleep. So I'm out on the couch and rocking the baby, changing the baby's diaper, feeding the baby. But then the baby's going to lay down for 90 minutes, and you kind of start to learn, hey, maybe I can get 60 minutes in here or 90 minutes in here.
So you're getting the cat naps.
You get little cat naps. So it's not like I'm just getting the 5 hours of sleep.
Right.
But you do get very good. My mom used to say to me that cliche, oh, you sleep when the baby sleeps. And I used to hate that saying until I realized, okay, it's a saying for a reason.
Yeah. We were just talking about this, that thinking you're going to get anything done when the baby's sleeping is like a recipe for disaster. Like you just have to get, at that point, you have to get the sleep when you can.
You do. It's very interesting. You start to learn it's unexpected ways that you learn to get things done. When the baby starts aging up into where they're in that little round, kind of almost playpen device that they can bounce in, but they can't really go anywhere.
Right.
You can suddenly realize, oh, I can go put the laundry in, which, non sequitur, but my God, the amount of laundry you do when you have a baby is insane. The beautiful part is it's all so tiny that they're actually not very big loads. You're washing so many bibs and so many onesies.
That's it. See, that is my thing. Like, I do the laundry. So
if I recommend anything,
to explode.
30 bibs. Like, you cannot have too many bibs.
You don't want to run out.
So
got it. That's awesome. So that, the initial kind of survival mode of what you're going through early on is really just, kind of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to being a dad. So what do you think are the most important things you've learned? Now Jacob is 8. So you've got 8 years under your belt. So that's like, 2 undergrad degrees. What do you think are the most important things you've learned about being a dad?
The most important things for me definitely have been how quickly everything goes and how temporary it is, and just how much it really forces you to reprioritize what's important to you. And sometimes it's the smallest things in the world, just a little 10-second interaction or 5-minute interaction with your kid that you're like, this is the greatest thing that's happened to me in the past 10 years.
Right.
And
what is one of the, like, is there a recent example of a moment like that?
Yeah, for sure. So I had this little bike for my son. And one important lesson to give you about a kid is if they're not into something, sometimes you really got to be ready to just accept that you cannot make it happen. Right. If they're not interested.
If they're into it, they're into it. And if they're not, there's not a lot.
Some people, I'm sure, get luckier than others where, you know, if you're into something, your kid will get into it too. But had this bike and my son just had no interest. And then I cannot even explain why, but one day recently he kind of drags it out and he's like trying to kind of ride it in the house. Okay. And I'm like, oh, this isn't not going to be super helpful. I'm like, why don't we take it outside? And he is game. So we take it outside and this is sort of the end of summer, early fall. So it's not quite. It's probably like when we're getting dark around 7-8 o'clock, and we're out there, and he's on it, and we're kind of pushing him down the road, and I'm there, and I've got my hand on his back, and we're talking and giving him the push, and then he's starting to do the pedaling, and it's still it's got the training wheels, but he's they're kind of raised up a little, so there's definitely tilt. Okay. And he is riding, and I've got my camera out, and he's like, you can take your hand off my back, and I kind of take my hand off, and I can see my shadow because it's at night, and he's riding, and he looks up at me, and it's in that moment where he's like, I'm doing it, and I just realize I'm living the moment that I've waited for, that bonding moment where it's like, I'm certainly going to remember this for the rest of my life.
Right. And whether he remembers it or not.
And he may or he may not. I'm have sure very fond memory. My dad was big into bedtime stories with me, and they're my most cherished memories. The way he would tell that's interesting.
I wonder if that's stories. Where your love of narrative and movies I
absolutely think that is. Because I spent my whole childhood and most of my adult life kind of browbeating myself, being like, I'll be 10% of what my dad was. And not in a negative way, but sure. in a cherished, like, that's how important those memories are to me. So because I feel that way, it is possible other people might feel that way up to and including my own child. So it's, you gotta wonder sometimes what moments you're sharing with another human being that might end up
being impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's how the moment of, with him learning to ride the bike. And I can kind of picture it. It's a very cinematic moment, the way you described it.
Oh, I have goosebumps just retelling the story, because I didn't, it all happened so quickly. I didn't have time to prepare, like, we're gonna start practicing on the bike.
This could be it.
It was just kind of,
it just happened.
He was interested for a moment, and I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's get the bike out there. Let's kind of strike while he's interested, because I wasn't anticipating that it was going to happen, but I knew I didn't want to miss the opportunity. I wanted to stoke that coal, and then to see your kid's face light up about anything. I mean, you can have the worst day. Life just
your
kicking
boss
you.
Is just being an asshole.
Yeah, your boss is just on your case about some lesson you refuse to learn. And then you get home, and this kid just is going to change your world.
That's awesome. So you mentioned it as part of that experience. Are there favorite ways, like, that you actively try to have to build that bond with your son? Like, do you think is there a conscious effort to do that, or just kind of taking opportunities like that where they present themselves, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little of both. So it is humbling, especially as your kid starts to age up. It's tough. And again, I think might be cliche. When your kid is very, very little as a baby, the interactions are mostly functional. It is a lot of love. Like, I have fond memories of just being exhausted and falling asleep on the couch with my kid on my chest. And like, those are great moments. And I think the early days, you're so busy with so much that the memories you're making are just
like a physical
they're just like
interaction.
the physical
bonding.
interactions, the quiet moments. And it's when your kid starts moving and starts talking. And then when you will remember the moments where you actually see the personality start to show. And you're like, oh,
that's who this kid
I remember
is.
My son, one of the first times when he was like, he started using expressions or, sayings. And I was like, when did you start having expressions?
Where did this come from?
Versus just functional dialogue.
Right. Yeah.
And things like that. So you kind of try to make moments. Like, obviously I'm really big into music. I try to expose, my son to as much music as I can. And, you got to be ready for the fact that they have zero interest in things. But then you'll start to see it echo back at you in ways that you might not expect, where they might show an interest. And it's possibly because they are remembering more than you think. And even if they don't show it in the moment, they are retaining, like, oh, I always listened to music with my dad, or I know my dad was into this. So there's that. And then just kind of spending time and finding out what they're into, and trying to, show interest and support.
Have there been those moments where all of a sudden out comes something that he's interested in or he's asking questions about, and you have no idea where that came from? Like, where
yeah,
how did you end up asking about this?
What's interesting is sometimes they're learning about something in school, and he'll come home and he'll just ask me to, like, quiz him on famous buildings in the world. And I'm like, where is this coming from?
I don't have the syllabus.
And then so you start to see where things are happening, or he'll come home and he'll say he wants to go look up a bunch of random places on Google Earth, and you got to put up with him giggling himself silly because he looked up, some funny sounding place in Chicago or whatever.
Gotcha.
You start to realize little kids are just really excited about everything they learn in school, or everything they learn if they're in daycare.
Right.
They come home and they're just they essentially have what most of the rest of us don't have anymore, which is
time
and an eternal sense of wonder.
Right.
Everything is exciting.
It's interesting because I always I think the idea time is the thing that none of us have anymore. And I think kids don't, and for a lot of kids don't have the time that we used to.
Oh no, everything is, it's this appointment, this rush to this, then we go to it's calendar based. It is so different than me as a child, just in summertime, just sitting on my bed, listening to somebody mow their lawn in the neighborhood and just being.
I mean, that's what it was like. I just remember when I think back to my being a young kid, that's what it is. It was literally just how to manage the kind of deafening boredom of childhood. There was not this constant. There were no play dates. There were no schedules. Yeah. There was no count. There was nobody driving you around anywhere. It was like your world was as far as you could get away on your bike.
Yeah,
and your friends and whatever you could get to.
There was a lot more in between moments because
unstructured time.
You were doing things, but if you stop for a moment and think, okay, I'm not about to check this notification. Are there any updates on this app that I use? Okay, how about this app? Whatever your top 5 apps that you open and spend minutes or hours scrolling through. Without that, you were left with like you said, the unstructured time. And it was different in how we approached childhood because
that's a lot of some of the other stuff I've been reading. It's like, it's why kids can't, I think a lot of kids now can't cope with, because they're continually, they haven't had to adjust to not being not constantly being stimulated, and I also like just the imagination piece of, that's what you did when you were a kid and you were bored, is it was this space for you to imagine and experiment and do sometimes dangerous things as a slightly older kid. But yeah, it's interesting to think about the differences now. So thinking about just in general now, and the point where, what grade is Jake?
He's in third grade.
So he's in third grade.
Yeah.
So he's kind of got a few years in. So at this point in this version of fatherhood where you're at right now, what's your favorite part?
The favorite part about being a dad right now is definitely at third grade. He's that age that I was looking forward to, I think, the most.
Okay.
When you're thinking about being a dad, a lot of times, especially if you don't have prior experience, like the thought of the baby and before they can talk and before you're really, you have stuff in common and stuff, it's tough to necessarily get excited about that. But the one part you just know you're really pumped about is when you get to the part where they have interests and hobbies and personality and a sense of humor and all of these things where you are essentially reminded of your own childhood. Right. We all have memories of what it was like to be a kid. And for me, I was obsessed with childhood. I loved being a kid and just going on adventures and having fun and having hobbies and having friends. And it's just, it truly is, at least to my memory, a magical time.
Sure.
And by having a kid who's kind of aging into that, I'm getting to be able to like secondhand live through that. And it's so exciting getting to see him start to formulate like what's his favorite this, and kind of getting to see him grow into that and
to figure out who he's going to be.
Yeah. I think there's something just intangibly magical about it. And it's the part that I did know, while obviously I didn't know if I was ever going to have kids, but the fact that I think the part that I was most excited about was there's something cool about the middle of elementary school where they start doing art projects and getting into this and just all the stuff that you're like, oh man, this is the good stuff, the fun stuff.
Right. That's neat. Welcome back. And we hope you enjoyed part 2 of our interview with John Taylor. John has a great voice.
Yeah.
I've heard from more than one listener, viewer, that they're like, yeah, he has a great voice. He's a good storyteller. So we've had very good.
I did enjoy it. I really did enjoy watching this. And hopefully there's more, right?
I think he listens to a lot of podcasts.
He knows what he's doing.
But he listens to like the long form,
yes.
He told me about, there's a video gaming podcast but it's like a 4-hour podcast. Ooh. That's an investment.
Ooh.
That's a lot. Although I have to say too, when it comes to long form, and we aren't going to do an I was wrong this time because we haven't been told that we were wrong.
I think they're being
about
nice
anything
throughout the holidays and all that went through.
They're
like, you know what? I'm not going to tell them that
we're
they're idiots.
We're going to give them a break. But I will say this. I may have overstated my brother's lack of interest.
Really?
I think he's trying.
Oh.
You gotta.
Well, I did say, Mike, do better, and he's doing better.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he is doing better. And I had mentioned the 26 hours that he spent listening to the book about Anthony Fauci.
Yes.
But his review of that book was compelling enough, and it is related, although tangentially, to the baby because it talks about vaccines. Some of it is about vaccines. So I thought, okay, I'm going to listen because he thought it was, and I'm about halfway barely halfway through it, listening to it at 1.5 times speed.
Wow.
It's still like 18 hours.
Yeah.
But I've got it on in the background. I'm listening, and it's a great, everybody. It's a book by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about it's called The Real Anthony Fauci, and it's a great book.
But that's not what your brother's reading, or is that?
That's what he was listening to, and I'm listening because he said it was so good, and that I should, and because of all the choices that we're going to have to make in the very near future regarding, because there's I think there's 69 vaccines that happen for a child in their first year or 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was never like that. And they haven't really gotten it that deep into it. What mostly the book has been focusing on up till now is COVID and how that was all managed. And it's kind of bad. It's really bad.
I think you take it for granted when, I guess, I know we did. You just listen to the doctors and go, okay, now we're going to do this vaccine, that vaccine. And you go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you do have to, not saying it's bad, good, different. You just have to investigate what you're putting into your child and yourselves. And if it works out for you. If not, you don't want that. Hopefully you have enough information to make that decision.
People were when you think back to that time, people were so just frightened. They were so frightened. They would have done anything.
We wanted to be safe from whatever you were giving us and telling us. Just save us.
Yep.
Just keep us safe.
Tell us what we need to do. And there was so much guilt applied to people that even if you were one of those people, as I was, I did not like the idea of the vaccine. I didn't like it. And the fact is, there was such a level of shame imposed on people that if you were one of those people, you don't care about other people. Right? There was a lot of that.
Instead of saying, oh my God, we don't know enough about this.
Right. Just letting people live their lives.
And your decision is your decision.
Yeah. And it became so politicized. It was
a tough time. It was a tough time.
And now I think hopefully what scared me in the initial aftermath, when things got better, it was like everybody just wanted to move on.
Yes.
But that is something that the way it happened could so easily happen again. And that's why I think the book is important to really understand some of the stuff that went on with the news and studies and how it was presented. It's worthwhile.
What I found out as I got older, you realize, you're wiser, hopefully. When we were younger and back in the day, you believed what you were told. Right? The news was the news.
Yep.
It wasn't one-sided. It was just the news. We thought it could have been, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like, here's the news. I'm going to tell everybody.
This is what happened, not what you had to think about it.
And I believe as that generation is still on this earth, we're still programmed like that. Believe what we just heard.
Well, and with doctors, I think that shifted my parents' generation, your parents' generation. Whatever a doctor said was like
it was gospel.
God talked to you.
It was gospel.
Right. It was like, okay.
It was go to church and go to your doctor.
That was
both of them are not lying.
You don't argue with you don't argue with your pastor. You don't argue with your doctor. And now that sadly, I think, and that's one of the things in the book that they talk about is that there were so many doctors that were like, wait a minute, I'm doing this with patients and it's working, and they just got shut down, not listened to. But it's interesting.
But bring it back to the podcast. When it comes to your child, you obviously want to do everything that you think the doctors and nurses and all these people, professionals are going, oh yeah, this is what we do, and this is what we've done, and this is what it's always going to do, and blah, 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 blah. And that's when you have to say, stop, this is my child.
Right.
This is let me look into this. And most of the time it might be correct. Yeah. Obviously, 75%, 99%, or whatever, I don't know what percentage it is. You're going to do what they say, and that's. But when you have when you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't.
Do we really need to?
Do we really
should
need
we
to go
do this
that way, or you shouldn't be hated for that thought.
This is one of the places where I do think there probably will be conflict between me and Kelly, because Kelly has a lot of members of her family or medical professionals.
Yep.
Her tendency will be to do exactly what the doctors are recommending, right? And I understand that. I say it all the time, she's a brilliant woman. And so it'll be difficult. Like, I need to read more books so I can.
Because you want to be educated too. When you say no,
if I'm going to push back,
when you say no, you want to have
be able to point at something
of,
substantive.
Exactly.
So it's a scary thing because You got to make these decisions. And that's one of the other things in the book that they talk about, because there are doctors right out there, pediatricians, that if you don't take all of it, they won't
You're not
treat
going
you.
there.
They won't treat
Yeah.
you. And then you find out, and one of the things they talk about in the book, the reason doctors do that is not that they have this passionate belief in some of these many untested things. What it is that they are bonused by the pharmaceutical companies on having 100% of their population on those regimens. And if they lose one, their bonus goes down. Yeah. Those are the things that make the hair on the back of my head stand up.
And this applies to everything. Follow the money.
Yeah.
Everything, entertainment, religion, whatever you put in there, follow that money. Where's what, and you'll find out. Oh, okay. I see where this is.
It's not because they're passionate.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is sad.
So Mike, thank you for having.
Yeah, good tip. So, and thank you for
a good discussion here.
Thank you for listening. You get a little good press.
Exactly. We've been rough with him.
we've been a little unfair.
The streets are calling his name.
But I gotta say,
give me Mike. Give us Mike.
But my sisters, I have to give them props. They're right there every episode. So
I just spoke to one of your sisters recently, and she's like, I just love what you and Frankie are doing. And I'm like, thank you. We love it too. So
yeah, we do.
Shout out.
So that was our, we just did our wrap up from John Taylor. And that brings us into what just happened, which is not a whole lot of crazy stuff, but we've got some stuff. So last time we talked about, Kelly and we had our appointment, we had our scan, everything was good. She went and had another test, kind of the final scan, the fetal echocardiogram, all good. But the glucose test that she took, the results came back and not good. So she drank the syrupy stuff. They took the blood when we went to that last appointment and came back high. So then what she had to do is go back.
Okay.
And they do a more detailed test. So this one, she had to go in. She couldn't have anything but like a little protein in the morning. She had to go in for her appointment. And then she was there for, I think, 3 hours. And they tested multiple times while she, I guess, drank more of that stuff.
Okay.
But they took more detailed, because they want to see not only what the numbers are, but how they change. Right, from a fasted state to having some sugar.
Sure.
And so that was difficult. They did that. Couple days later, we get the results, and she failed that test again. So
now, could you remind us again what this test is showing?
So this is the glucose test is basically for gestational diabetes. So
gotcha.
The gestational diabetes, basically, I think, for most people, it just, when that happens, it makes the baby get big. The baby gets fat, right? So the size of but it also has an impact on how far to term you get because of the size of the baby, how difficult birth is. So there's all kinds of reasons why they want to control that. So
makes sense.
So she got the recommendations now, and initially, I really thought like I'm this is one of those areas where my lovely wife and I differ. And that is, I do believe in, I think more so than she does, the power of believing something is going to go a certain way, right? I think like if you believe you're going to take a blood test and you're going to fail it, you're going to fail it. Right,
your thoughts are going to.
Your mind is very powerful. I really believe that.
So you're on that side of the street.
I'm on and she's much more on the very scientific side of the street. Like, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah, you don't wish things. Or
even when she took the second test, because I'm looking at her, she doesn't. I see what she eats. She's not. She certainly is not. Diabetic or pre-diabetic. Normally.
Right.
And she doesn't, she's not eating a bunch of sweets. She's not even eating a whole lot of carbs. She's eating fairly healthfully.
Okay.
So I'm thinking this is nonsense. So I'm like, don't worry about it. So basically they put her on this protocol of she now has to get one of those glucose monitors.
Sure.
And she's got to do a finger prick.
Okay.
Like in the morning when she gets up, and then 2 hours after she eats throughout the day. And she's making notes of the numbers.
Making sure the numbers. Yep.
So
the numbers.
The first day she gets the thing, and they give you the little machine, you know, a little strip, and then you have
very well.
Yeah, and she's got to do that, right? So she's trying to set up the little pricker thing.
Yeah.
So of course, and there's another difference with me. I would be like, set it for the deepest thing and make sure it works, and then back off. She's trying it over and over again, not getting any blood. Yeah. She's squeezing her. I'm like, oh. So it's like torture.
Cut that thing.
It took her for a while.
Mick.
She gets it, tests, numbers. She's saying the numbers are low. The numbers are good. And I am remiss. I apologize to our listeners and viewers. I don't know what the numbers are supposed to be. I just know she's telling me
under 100.
Oh, they're
I don't know.
Yeah, her numbers like in the morning were like I think in the low 90s.
Yeah, I say this because my parents do that. So that's why I say I know that. So they're always doing it in front of me.
But I think it's a different set of numbers that they're looking at for her. But regardless, she's doing it, and every time she's testing, the numbers are under what she was expecting.
Huh.
And I'm like, you know why? Because you decided.
My mind said so.
So I'm like, you're not. I'm like, this is not a thing. So she's going through and been doing it, and at some point she will have an appointment.
Sure.
And they will review that data and come up with plans.
Bring your machine and show them.
I'm not.
Take the blood out of when you go to the next.
Let them take mine.
Take your, not yours. No, not yours. Take that machine you're doing at home with the low numbers.
Yeah.
And bring that over there. And
she's noticed. She makes a note of everything, and she's got to give it. She's got to basically
report
give them all that data. So we'll see how it goes, but that's where we are for now with the possible. I'm still not a believer,
right? But
possible gestational diabetes.
And there's not been one reading that's been high.
No, not higher than she would expect, because she's been basically like, well, if it's this low, I'll have a little bit more. Like she's having more carbs. She's not a sweets person, right? So even there's like cookies all over the place because of the holiday.
And they are.
They're everywhere.
I just walked into a whole kitchen of them.
There's a lot
still.
So yes, they are still there. But she's. I think she's eating healthfully. Hopefully, it's going to go the right way.
I would never look at Kelly and go, wow, she's got to control that eating.
Like, calm down. No, she's been.
But it could be just because of the pregnancy and everything gets whacked. It has nothing to do with
that is the
food and all that good stuff.
It could be completely that. I know her mother with Kelly's mom had gestational diabetes with her younger brother.
Okay.
So it could be a family.
This is not common, but this happens a lot.
Yeah, a lot of women.
A lot. So
I think it's very, very common. And, I think,
you deal with it. I mean,
I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's like now they have such an understanding of all this stuff. They want everything in these very narrow tolerances.
Right.
When it comes to, they keeping up on something that they can manipulate and control, why not do it?
Yeah. As we're talking about this, I'm just thinking about next week's You Were Wrong and how many things we just talked about.
Yep, that's going to be there.
This whole medical thing.
I can almost guarantee it.
In the last couple of segments we had.
Anytime I talk about anything where I'm like, oh no, it's nothing to worry about.
So I can't wait for that one to go, oh, you silly men.
You have that to look forward to. It's going to be, I'm sure. Absolutely. So there's that stuff. We'll find out more next week, I think. We're now at the point where I think this is adorable. It started with one of Kelly's cousins. Mm-hmm. I get a text message and it's like, hey, I've got this play mat. I wasn't sure if you'd be interested. And I'm like, you know what? I was just telling Kelly that my playmat's worn out and I need a new one. I'm like, come on, send it on. So we're starting so they show.
You're gathering things.
That people are like ready to start giving us stuff. Yeah. So we had a holiday party and a bunch of family comes. It's always nice. And of course, they show up with the playmat and all there's 2 boxes of stuff. It's very nice. And I think it's funny because you can see they're happy to do it because it's obviously they're being helpful and we're grateful to get it. And there's also, I think, a little bit of thank God I got this out of the way.
Ding, ding. Winner, chicken dinner.
It's awesome. I'm happy to do it. It's
great. Not in my house, anymore.
I'm already thinking like, wow, like we got a lot of room.
That's absolutely.
And they probably, they're like, here.
That smile is, I knew it. It's out. Someone needs it.
No, it's really funny.
Yeah, it's a double whammy for them. Yeah. They're happy to do it for you.
Yeah.
And they're happy to do it for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was, and it was fun. Obviously it was fun to see everybody for that stuff. But yeah, so that's it. So a lot of stuff, a lot more gifts from the registry up.
Yes.
We have upcoming in a couple weeks. It'll be Kelly's baby shower. So that's coming up. And then there's going to be one where her family is in Buffalo, and then there'll be one here.
Okay.
So we've got those both coming
splits.
up in the next few weeks. But
well, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have a section of the house yet for all the gifts that are going to go in, like the garage, or because you're going to have a lot of stuff?
I think what I'm thinking about is in our basement, just starting to identify an area. that will be where all that stuff. Because right now our tree is still up. And it's all like there, and it's
you get other things.
It's getting out of control.
You get other things.
That was another thing that was also a very nice gift from those same cousins. And it made me remember something strange that I did as a kid.
Okay,
but they got already a tricycle. A radio flyer tricycle.
You can put that next to your sister-in-law's bench.
The Barca Lounger.
Yeah.
We got that, but adorable little thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but it made me think of this. I don't know why I did this as a kid, and maybe other kids that did it, or maybe it's just a unique to my weird childhood. For some reason, when I was a kid, I would take my tricycle, I would flip it over.
Okay.
So the seat and the handlebars were on the ground. And then you could grab the pedal on the wheel, and I would crank the pedal.
Okay.
And in my head, I was making ice cream.
Wow.
Why? I don't know why.
It's your problem.
Yeah, he said if as a child, it's not like that I didn't have ice cream. I was making ice cream.
Most kids would die for a bike.
For a tricycle.
Right? They're like, give me a tricycle. You go, I need that tricycle because I want to make ice cream.
Yeah, I wanted my.
That's hilarious.
That's what I did with my tricycle. Making ice cream.
Where you're like, did you have like anything other than like you're running a business?
I don't know.
Going to make ice cream for the kids?
No.
You're just happy enough just to make it.
I don't know. Like part of me, as I think about this, and I'm trying desperately to figure out why I would do that.
Oh, that's so good.
So our driveway was not. We didn't have a paved
driveway. You had rocks.
We had
a Rocks family?
Run across because my dad, as we have discussed, was a distributor for Stella Door cookies. Of course. So we would have a tractor trailer show up, and there was a warehouse. He had a 1,300 square foot warehouse with a full bay door in the backyard, which was strange because we lived in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
But there it is. So that was it. So we would have a tractor trailer show up once a week. You
were like commercial things going through this residential.
Our home was zoned commercial.
That's why you got away with
it. That was it. So, but yeah, it was a run across. You had to for the tractor trailer.
Sure.
So that was it. So it wasn't like I was riding around on a tricycle in that.
That's true.
All over the place.
Ice cream sounds a lot better than what you would have.
It also made it very hard to learn how to ride a bike.
All the other kids
had a nice paved driveway.
What's Frank doing?
Yeah, I'm falling down.
Yeah, and then turning it over, going, "I'll just make ice cream, guys." That's funny because not to get personal, but you've kind of run of ice cream.
I have.
You have run
Thank
an
goodness
ice cream.
It's over.
Right. You have run an ice cream shop. So everything comes.
Yep.
You know how you said your mind makes things happen?
Yeah.
So that moment when you were thinking of making ice cream.
My first job,
Friendlies.
I did work at Friendlies. I mean, it wasn't my first. I had my paper route, and then I worked at Williams making pizza. It's all about
it's food,
pizza, and then I worked at Friendlies,
food and service,
and then I recently owned a Sweet Frog knockoff,
absolutely,
which I have now closed and gotten.
But it's funny that I just remembered it. Friendlies,
Friendlies.
I mean, that's truly ice cream. I mean, it was only because of you have the love of ice cream since a kid.
It was only because of Friendlies that I met you.
Yes,
that was it. Because,
because she did. Yeah,
because I met my first girlfriend, Laura Pontillo, whose brother is an avid listener.
Yes, Dear friend of ours.
Yes, Phil Pontillo,
Yep.
brilliant woodworker in Montana.
Not too shabby of a drummer.
Pontillo Furniture Concepts. Look him up.
Too shabby. Look him up. Yeah, that was our first sponsor. Phil, send us the check.
Yeah, if they send us. I'd like a high chair. Oak.
He went
Quarterson, please.
He wants a tricycle he can turn around and make some ice cream with. That has to be the next thumbnail. That ice cream coming out of a tricycle.
I don't know why.
Oh, that's good.
There's
that's
more.
Fun.
There's more. I have another example of a weird thing I did as a kid. Now
save them.
Has come out.
Please.
Next episode.
I love when you do these. I'm always.
You're just picturing a little pudgy Frank.
That is just the best. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm making ice cream.
I'm making ice cream.
I just think of, selfishly, I think of my wife listening to this. And then when you say these things, she just starts bursting because she has no idea that you're going to say what you just said.
Yeah.
So I love that.
This is all for you, Trina.
This whole podcast is for our wives.
Even if it was true, it would be worth it.
Exactly.
But
that's funny.
So anyway, thank you once again for making it all the way to the end. And I'm sure we will have more sad stories from my childhood to talk about.
You know what, Frank? Let's go get some ice cream.
Well, okay. This is good. I never get ice cream after the show.
Let's take our bikes there.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay. Thanks very much. Well, folks, that's another episode of the Gray Hair and Daycare podcast in the books. Thanks very much for tuning in and spending this time with us. We hope it was fun. If you enjoyed this week's descent into the madness of dadness, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of our future adventures. And while you're at it, give us a like and share the cast with your friends on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Carrier Pigeon, whatever you crazy kids are using. Have any hilarious parenting stories of your own? Questions about navigating fatherhood later in life, or even when normal people do it? Email us at ghdc.podcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to bed.